Albania today, a historic past and a prosperous future. Hello and welcome to ALB UK television. In my 52 years of experience as a photojournalist and as a broadcaster, I have seen many things in my life. Recently, I was watching a Sky News programme which tried to show that trafficking in Albania coming into UK was a major issue. The reality is I've seen trafficking at first hand, both in Eastern Europe with places like Romania and Russia, and I've also seen it in third world countries from the past like the Philippines. So when I was asked by ALB to actually look to see, is this the truth? Is this really what's happening in modern day Albania? Is this the major problem that Sky News was saying that it is? I decided to go for myself and see modern day Albania and try to understand what the problems are. The reality, when I went there, I didn't see any of the types of experiences that I felt would be normally with this type of trafficking or prostitution. In the past, when I've worked in areas like this, both in London, Manila, Bucharest and Moscow, I have seen prostitution at first hand, and it's terrible. I have seen where prostitution works around the major 4- and 5-star hotels, and it's prevalent both day and both night. In Tirana, the main city where we stayed, I stayed at 4- and 5-star hotels, and I went the streets. There was no restriction on what I did in any way, shape or form. I had unrestricted issues to talk about with government ministers and different people of importance in the country. And to my satisfaction, I saw no major problem at all. So this program really is designed to look at the Sky News project, to see where they are saying the problems lie, and for me to give a right of reply. Might I add that I have worked with Sky News as a role commentator and correspondent for the past 10 years as well. And so I normally work without payment for this channel. So when I discovered that Sky News had done this program and I felt there was unfairness, then I asked for a right of reply. I both wrote to a person involved that I thought was the head of Sky News, and I also wrote through their normal systems asking for a right of reply. Several days later, in fact 1 week, nothing has been replied to me at all. So where does that leave Sky News, and where does that leave Albanian people in Britain who I feel are being denigrated by this type of programming? So we will go through all the issues that Sky News have done, and I will show you my point of view. So firstly, one of the main issues that was shown on Sky News was this woman in silhouette. And she was saying, quote, "Men always have control over women." So I went to see a cross-section of women in Albania to ask them, is this the truth? This is our report on that.
They are very compassionate. They very empathetic, and I don't want them to confuse. They were raised to respect people, to respect wherever they lived, and I don't want them to confuse. When they respect people in the house, they respect their husband, they respect their in-laws, they respect the youngest, especially mothers, who they take care for everybody. And I don't want that to be to be manipulated in different way, that they are controlled.
There's a quote recently, and it was a lady in silhouette. in another television news package, and she was saying that in reality Albanian men put women down. What is your view on that?
I don't think this is true. I don't think this is true at all. If you see women's voice in Albania is heard a lot, and they have much more opportunities that they have been having in the past, and they actually play a crucial role in the society, not only bringing up the children, educating them properly, but bringing innovative stuff into the world. They are more eager to develop not only the place they live, but the whole society. I believe that women are strong power in Albania, and they are getting better and better every day.
I am Elona Shehu. I was born and raised in Albania, and I've studied in European University of Tirana, and then I studied in Amsterdam, in Vrije University of Amsterdam, which is one of the best universities in Europe. And then I came back, studied PhD studies in Albania, and now I'm a Doctor of Science, a PhD. And I'm working at European University of Tirana since 2013 now. I'm teaching in the finance department, and I'm also working as the vice administrator of the university, which is quite a good responsibility for a startup career person, and a lady as well.
How do you see women in society in Albania today, especially in business? Do you feel there are glass ceilings, and do you feel that women are going through those glass ceilings into more important roles?
I might say that there has been a bias about Albanian women and their position in society and in business and politics and whatsoever. But I might say that during the last decade, a tremendous change has been done. Even in politics, we have a rule that 50% of the politicians should be females, and you can only see the parliament meeting to find out what's the female role in Albania in terms of politics, and in terms of business and career and whatsoever. I might say that there has been a change, a positive change. Most of best CEOs in Albania are females. Most of best entrepreneurs and most successful entrepreneurs are females. And I might say that even though there is a bias that in Albania there is not a gender approach between males and females, gender equality between males and females, I might absolutely confess the opposite. I know many females who've studied Harvard, LSE, Yale University, Cambridge and Oxford, students of EUT who now are leading the most renowned institutions in Albania.
And where do you see Albania itself? What is your vision? What's your hopes for the future?
During the last 5 years, especially 5 years, there has been much with Albanians and Albanian students studying abroad. The possibilities of studying in different universities, best universities, have considerably increased. So there are a lot of Albanian students, excellent students, who are studying abroad. And the good thing is this, that they are trying to come back to Albania. This is what I did personally. And once they are coming back, they are bringing their knowledge, their experience, and this will have a good contribution in Albanian society and the living standard, and their career opportunities will increase. So I personally believe that the future of Albania and youth and females is going to be in a good optician. Like if we see it into a point of view, it's going to be a very good future, because they are all getting best education and they are all coming to Albania.
Because I'm an Albanian woman, and according to my experience and according to my friends and social status, you know, and interaction in the communities and throughout the country, from south to north of the country, it doesn't result me like that. So that's not that's not what we have seen with our eyes, you know, with our experience. So for as long as it is not true, of course it does affect me, you know. It affects me not only on a personal level, but as well on a moral and ethical level, because all this false reputation that is being created, you know, about Albanian women in Europe, you know, it endangers even us as other Albanian women.
So now I'm asking the question of young females in the European University in Tirana. And the question is, are Albanian women put down? Do men rule the lives of Albanian women? This is the question I'm going to ask, and it's what we call, in journalistic terms, light the blue touch paper and watch the fireworks start. So can I start first of all by asking yourself, what do you think, are Albanian women put down today?
It is impossible to be like that, because Albanian women are a strong one, and as you can see at university, even at the bar here, you can find more females than males on the other hand. So how can it be that they are put it under? And there are a lot of strong women in there, and you can find in all the companies very strong women which are in companies, directors or management part, and as you can see, it is impossible for us to be pushed under the man. There is not a line between men and women. We're talking about modern Albania, and normally there is no line. We are equal at this point.
So I'm doing what we call in journalism, light the blue touch paper and then stand back. The question is, that's been put out into media in Britain, is women in Albania, they're put down by men. There was recently a woman who was in Silhouette, and she was saying all women are put down in Albania. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think not all the women, but I think that like every place in the world that have some cases, it depends in where they are living, it depends in their education, the family tradition, and how they raise them. So I don't think that all the women are there. For example, I feel good. I have friends, a lot of friends, male friends, and they act very good. We have colleagues, they are very polite and everything. Everywhere you go, they try to be good. So I don't think that all the women are like that. But of course, I admitted that there are cases that are very bad. So.
But it's the same in Britain as well. As a young man, how do you see this?
I mean, in Balkan in general, there are lots of problems with gender equality. Be that in Greece, be that in Serbia, in Albania, in Kosovo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, etc. Of course, in Albania there are cases, but I would say not in the capital or in the big cities of Albania. I would say, for example, in the remote villages, for example, where even the children may not have that much rights, but we can take, for example, even in Germany or in America or even in England, there are problems with the women. There have been cases when the women have been beaten. And so, of course, there are cases like this in Albania. But I will say I work in a place filled with women. My boss is a female. and I don't have any problem with that.
Thank you. How would you respond to that?
Well, I'd say it's basically the same as the other students. I think we should say it's an isolated case, and only in the remote villages or places where culture hasn't really been touched in a while. And
but would you say this is typical?
Not typical at all. That's why I say it's an isolated case, and basically I haven't even heard of stuff like that in years. So. But sure, I do live in the capital, but still, even in remote places, there are still some things that still need to change, but I would not go to that extreme.
And as a young woman, how do you think about this?
Well, I absolutely agree with my fellow students, and I believe that women here in Albania have all the rights, I would say almost as equal as men, because all around the world, as we said, we are still fighting to be in the right conditions, let's say, or to show our qualities.
Do you see opportunities today, not only for yourself in Albania, but in the rest of the world? How do you feel?
I believe there are many opportunities for everyone, and I must say I have seen a lot of success cases for many women, same as my age or even younger. So I believe that everyone who has qualities, who has the will and the desire to be someone, has all the opportunities in the world to do so. I myself have won a scholarship here in the European University of Tirana, 3 years with no fee, and I also have found myself very comfortable working here. I work at the communication office, so I believe that for my age this is something very nice, and I believe there are many other things waiting for me. I have the will and desire to do so.
Do you feel there are still glass ceilings for women in business?
Well, I believe there are some limitations so far, but this is something we can change by improving ourselves and by saying the world we can do it, because we can do it. Actually, we are just like men in the terms of capabilities and desire to work and talent and everything. I believe, in my personal opinion, that it's a matter of individual.
It's a matter of skill.
And I saw you shaking your head. Tell me.
I mean, as a young man, I would say it's a matter of skill. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, not at all. We could see nowadays in our country CEOs, which are women, which are driving some of the biggest, companies in our country, and it's all changing. It's all changing. It's been a legend, let's say, before the democracy in our country, but since 1990 it has changed. So I think the role of women here in politics, in business, it's something that we see every day. Women are ruling over here, even in the university, as our fellow students said. We have women who are leading, offices and stuff. So I think that, it's a matter of opinion. If people would come to Albania and to see for themselves, they would see the change. I don't think that it's somehow, a relatable topic from being outside of the reality in here. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Next, this is a majority of foreign victims are coming from Albania to London, and the numbers are on the rise. Is this the truth, or is there all sorts of implications to who might be saying that they are trafficked and what the truth might be? Here is our report. The Albanian community in Britain, it's a family. And the family have become very hurt by recent videos that have been seen on another Sky News channel. And so today we are talking about trafficking. How big is the problem of Albanian trafficking? And what are the effects really on the Albanian community in Britain? And how do Albanians see themselves in reality? So with me today I have Ambassador Chico, who is the Albanian ambassador. I have Justine Correll, who is the director of Unseen Charity, and she helps trafficking victims. I have Marita Isufi, who founded Successful Mothers, and immigration lawyer Naeem Hassani as well. So I'd like to start off by asking Justine, can you explain from your position, how do you see Albanian trafficking? Is it a major problem? Is it the only problem that you face from girls coming into the country? And how can we actually help?
I think what we need to remember is that trafficking and modern slavery is an issue that affects every country across the world. What we're seeing in the UK is clearly a number of Albanian victims, but we're seeing not just women, we're also seeing men. So we run the UK-wide modern slavery helpline, and we do see a number of victims presenting to us for help and support, or being reported by somebody else. But it's not an isolated incident in terms of looking at Albania only. We have issues from UK nationals themselves, but also Romanian, Polish, Vietnamese, Nigerian. So it's an issue that's affecting this country from all parts of the world. And I think we need to remember that and respect that when we're talking about this issue.
Thank you for saying that. So how can Albanian communities themselves help with this issue? Yes, I know from the government perspective it's being looked at very seriously, but how can we support a charity like yours at the same time?
Well, I think it's important to remember that when we're talking about trafficking and we're talking about modern slavery, we're talking about people who are vulnerable to being exploited. So we have to work with local communities. So that's diaspora communities within the UK, but that's also communities within their own countries. So it's important that we build relationships, with the communities here, and we ensure that when somebody does feel vulnerable or they're in a situation where they could be abused or exploited, that actually they can seek help. So it's really a community-based issue that we need to help and support.
Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, I know you have some very strong views on the actual video that was seen on Sky News. Obviously, we accept that there are issues, but sometimes we feel that they've been blown out of all proportion compared to other countries. And we feel that this Sky News video didn't really sort of cast a good case for Albania in total. Can you give me your views, please?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I would like to start by repeating what the lady told, that trafficking is not an Albanian issue, it's a global issue. And what my government is doing especially in the last 5 years, is to fight together with our partners, in this case with our British partners, this phenomenon. And my concern, referring to the documentary you mentioned, is that, this kind of documentary is unbalanced, because we have seen in this film, this documentary, that, okay, Albanians are criminals, Albanians are people who are trafficking children, women, and things like that. It's totally unfair. Let me give you just a simple example, that in this documentary there is an interview of the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs in Albania. I've talked today with her. In the documentary, there are only two sentences in which she explained what the government is doing to fight corruption. Sometimes even within police, something that is in common in all police. Every modern police is doing the same, fighting corruption within the police forces. But what we have seen in the documentary, the interview was 22 minutes. The interview between the deputy minister and the journalist. And in this documentary we have only two sentences in which she confirmed that we are fighting corruption. And the comment from the journalist, the authority accepts the corruption within the police. This is not fair. This is unacceptable for a prestigious channel like Sky. That's my view.
And I know that you have examples of even court cases that may be pending, so we can't talk too much about this at the moment, how this system might be abused as well. Can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank all the NGOs who are involved in the process of helping assistant the victim of the trafficking. Doesn't matter they are Albanians, Polish, whatever. But in the meantime, there are some cases that I'm sorry to say that sometimes this kind of so-called NGOs are giving some wrong messages to the people that would like to come and live in UK. Let me explain. UK is an excellent country. not only for Albanian, but for the French, for Germans, for whatever. Everybody would like to come and live here. Because, well, I'm from 2 years. It's one of the best for the condition, for the system, for in all aspects. I don't want to continue more. So it's an attractive country. Of course, the European Union countries can come here, can move here freely, can have their right to work here. The Albanians have not. We are not member of European Union. And sometimes people trying to find other ways to get the permission to stay here or the permission to work. And sometimes, I have proof of that, there are some kind of people, sometimes working in some NGOs, that they explain to the victims of the trafficking that the only opportunity that you can get the right papers to stay legally here is to introduce yourself to the authority as a victim of a trafficking, in the case of the women, or as a victim of, let's say, unaccompanied children. We have cases of that. So I will stop here for the moment, and I will continue later on if you will give again the opportunity.
Of course. Justine, how do you answer something like that? I mean, you obviously must have filtration systems to ensure that everyone that you're talking to is genuine. So what type of filtration systems do you have?
Well, we involve the individuals themselves. We will ask them questions. We will try and find out what the situation is and what they tell us about that. But clearly, as an NGO, we are looking to elaborate on their situation so we can identify whether they are potentially a trafficked victim or not. I absolutely agree with the Minister in terms of, you know, there are sometimes perverse incentives. But I'd like to categorically state that Unseen as an NGO absolutely is not in that game. What we try and do is actually establish if somebody has an issue with their immigration status, for example, we actually signpost them to somebody that can help them with that. We don't try and deal with that ourselves. If they are alleging that they have been trafficked, then we will put them in contact with somebody that can help them and provide those support services for them. So it's really important that we use that as a filter and as a triage so that we're not putting people through a system that is not right for them. And we just need to accept that there will be an element of any country who wants to come to the UK and doesn't have the right to work or live here without becoming a refugee or without regularising a status, there may be perverse incentives to do that. That's not akin to Albania or Albanians. I think that could happen right across the piece. So we have to put everything in context.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hassani, you have great experience in this as a lawyer. So tell me, what are your experiences regarding these types of issues?
Well, first of all, let me just say that trafficking is a worldwide, as I say, I don't need to repeat myself, but it's a worldwide problem, a worldwide phenomenon, and particularly with the most industrialized countries in the world. And there is movement throughout the countries, there's conflicts, there is torture, there is abuse, there is all sorts of reasons why people come to the United Kingdom or other countries indeed. But let's take, for example, United Kingdom. Well, there's been so much effort to coordinate a joint response within the European Union and actually internationally to victims of trafficking. Now, let's say that trafficking is an appalling crime. It's one which should be punished at the full scale of law from every country, including United Kingdom, Albania, or any other country. The question is, like in any other aspects of asylum and immigration law, you're bound to get this types of cases sometimes where, you know, people probably maybe would seek to fabricate the story of being of someone being a victim of trafficking. The government, UK government, has a proper mechanism in place for identifying and properly treating the victims of trafficking, and also properly treating those who, let's say, claim to be victim of trafficking and are found not to be such. We have a national referral mechanism which includes many other organizations working with claimed victims of trafficking. But this country prides themselves for giving sanctuary to all people claiming asylum or being victim of trafficking. And it's very difficult for the government to say, I'm not talking particularly for Albania, but any other nationalities, to say that from day one this person is not a victim of trafficking, or not victim of domestic violence, or not victim of any other form of exploitation, including forced labor or slavery. So, but what important is, everyone is given the opportunity. But what is more important is that the period and the process which is afforded by the Home Office to those who are or claim to be victims of trafficking is the one which is fair, and is one which is organized in a manner so whoever is a victim of trafficking is treated with dignity, and whoever is not, is given the proper response and get the proper basically outcome as per their makeup. So what I think is that yes, we see a number of Albanian cases, but that I have to say that you have to look at the statistics of how many claim to be victims of trafficking and how many are granted any form of leave as victim of trafficking, because after that they follow the asylum process, and then you probably get 1 year period of reflection if you are found to be a victim of trafficking. But then there's the asylum element of it, and you have to look at this, compare it with the other nationalities. This is not only an Albanian issue, and it cannot be only an Albanian issue. And like any other government, there is corruption in many countries, and surely, but fighting trafficking in another country is a government's responsibility and government's response, and including the United Kingdom. We've seen appalling cases here in the UK as well of people being exploited and people being sexually abused, and in one of the number 5 economy in the world. So, but the most important is how the government of the United Kingdom deals with these cases, and whoever tries to abuse this wonderful system and wonderful network which has the government created in the United Kingdom to support the victims of trafficking, these people are dealt with accordingly, in accordance to the law.
Thank you, Mr. Asani. Marita, you are founder of Successful Mothers. How do you see this as an Albanian-speaking mother yourself, but also for your organisation as well?
Well, Successful Mothers is a new model to build better communities, to build better communities and create the world we want to see every day. And this is not in my agenda to happen by blaming others, but by getting together, because together we have the power to change things. And we see that this is a global issue that we're discussing about, and of course it shouldn't be swept under the rug, but together to discuss around it and find the way how to deal with it in best way, but not to try and build the walls by pointing fingers to other countries, but just discuss what the problem is, and connecting, and as you said, working in partnership to how to deal with the situation in best way possible. I've been reading carefully because of course I was shocked when I saw that program in Sky News, and I read that was 5,145 cases from 116 different nationalities. So this wasn't just Albania, it's a global issue, and we highlighted that today, that is a global issue. And how do we deal with that? This is the question, how together we deal with that. And what I'd like and what I would like to suggest to all the parents, to all these mothers, because 2 on 5 of them are children, which is very upsetting. And most of them are women and girls. So I would like to send a message to all the mothers that they should raise awareness to educate themselves and educate their children and raise awareness about these issues and talk to their children about the problem that is going on, because we know that the children and the teenagers are targeted because they are easier to manipulate. So this is what I would like to discuss on raising awareness, and is lots of points that we have to discuss.
Justine, so do you work with organisations like Marita's at the moment, and does that help your cause as well to get that message out?
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to work with as many organisations as possible. I think it's absolutely vital, because we do need to get that message out there. And I think you've raised a really important point around the context and the number of cases. So if we look at the Modern Slavery Helpline, we've had 77 cases involving Albanian nationals who are potentially trafficked to the UK. But that's not a huge amount if you look at that's over nearly 2 years worth of data. So 77 cases involving about 150 individuals. What we've seen historically is probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, reports of Albanian females in particularly in sexual exploitation. What we're seeing is actually a mix of forced labour and sexual exploitation. So what I would like to say is that, you know, trafficking is a complex issue. It's very dynamic. We're talking about organised criminals who actually will move their networks, and they will move their operations to make it as profitable as they possibly can. Yes, we've got this issue around Albanian nationals potentially portraying they're a victim of trafficking, and as I said earlier, that's not specific to Albanians, but I think what we need to do is make sure that we take a measured approach. We need to work country to country, government to government, NGO to NGO, so that when we identify vulnerable people, whether they're trafficked or not, they get the right help and support they need, either to remain here, and if that is attempting to regularise their status, or if that is a safe return home, if that is what is suitable for them. I think we need to work in collaboration, so working with lots of different organisations who have a very community-focused base and core, I think is absolutely vital.
Thank you. Can we broaden the discussion out a little bit now as well? Because in reality, I think from a professional view of my own, I feel that there has been no reply or no response to any asking for a right to reply to this programme by Sky News at the moment. I've sent out 2 messages. So can we just broaden this out a little bit? And Mr. Ambassador again, tell me, how do you think the Albanian community feels about this? And does it really sort of show what Albania is all about today?
Well, thank you very much for this question. Because as Ambassador of Albania, after this documentary has been shown in Sky News, I received 100,000 of phone calls of Albanian citizens living here, and to express their concerns about this documentary, which is, as I mentioned, totally unbalanced and unfair. Because here in UK, let me explain, the number of Albanians are more than 100,000. And they are part of this society. 600 of them, young Albanians now, are working in the city of London. There are more 55 academics. There are more than 1,200 businesses only in London, running by the Albanians. It's a community well integrated, thanks to the opportunity that this country offered to everybody that would like to build his life based on his work honestly. So that's why the reaction of my community was really tough, because it's unacceptable to introduce, Albanian community as a community of people who, support trafficking, support violation, support. How is it possible that the country in which was born Mother Teresa to be like that? How is it possible that in a country during the Second World War protected the most weaker people during the, I'm talking about the Jewish people. Do you know that in Albania the number of Jewish after the war was 10 times higher than before the war? And do you know why? Because the Albanians opened the door, and they were mostly Muslim Albanians who opened the door to the Jewish coming from Germany, from Austria, from all around the world, and no one Jewish was delivered to the Nazis. You know what the Albanians did during the Kosovo crisis? Of course, Kosovo people are our brothers, but we opened the door for more than 600,000 Albanians, and today all Europe is talking about immigration, the problem that the illegal immigration created. Do you know how much there are in Lesbos? Around 65,000. Thank you.
And Marita, I mean, there was this shadowy figure, a silhouette of a lady who said that men always have control over women in Albania. How do you feel about that as an Albanian mother?
Yeah, I just would like to describe the Albanian woman. They are very caring, they are very intelligent, they are very compassionate, they very empathetic, and I don't want them to confuse. They were raised to respect people, to respect wherever they lived. And I don't want them to confuse. When they respect people in the house, they respect their husband, they respect their in-laws, they respect the youngest, especially mothers, who they take care for everybody. And I don't want that to be to be manipulated in different way, that they are controlled. They are full of courage and strength. And these two strong points together make them very empathetic towards everyone in family and out the family. And as Mr. Ambassador mentioned, Mother Teresa, we've got the best example to give to the whole world. She was raised full of love, and she managed to spread that love to the whole world. Her father died, she was 8 years old, and her mother, she became very close to her mother, and she educated her, and she gave her that love to care for people who needed it most. And she went out in the world and cared for the most needed people who needed it, her care, for most needed children. And that is the best example for the whole world to take on. And what I would like to mention as well, because it was said that it's a very poor country or poorest country in Europe. Economy is something different. It's nothing, I would say, to do with trafficking, because trafficking could happen to every country. It doesn't matter how wealthy they are. It's more emotional state. And I would say that the love in Albanian families is very strong. And that's what is the first standard to set in the family, to set high standard of love and educate and start from there. And that's what all Albanian mothers do. Start from loving their families, loving their children, and educating them. And that should never be taken as weakness. And respecting their husband or respecting their in-laws shouldn't be taken as weakness, because they do get the respect back. And have we got individual cases that go wrong? Of course we do. And it's not just in Albania, it's in all different countries in the world. I worked for 16 years in education, and I was very lucky to work with colleagues from different countries, because not just in Albanian school. I work in Albanian school on Saturdays, but every day of the week, which was 8 hours a day, I spent with colleagues from different nationalities in London. And I didn't see any difference that Albania is completely different, but all these mothers that I met were very caring, very loving, very well respected from husbands. I would say 99%, would say 1% that they were maybe unlucky and they dealt with issues in the ways that they had to deal. But I wouldn't see Albanian women as a victim, never.
So, Mr. Ambassador, part of the program that was shown on Sky shows this family at night, and according to a charity called Vatra that has a small organization in Albania and in America, these families are the types of people who get trafficked. So how do you feel about that?
Well, referring to this case, really I don't know which is this organization called Vatra. It's a famous name which preserved for more than 100 years now in the United States the Albanian values, the Albanian values of Albanian communities living in the States. I don't know this case, what this Vatra organization is doing, but in the meantime I would like to stress something more, that referring to this case, there is a national strategy to fight organized crime, to fight trafficking. In the meantime, there is an action plan, there is a strategy from the government for the integration or reintegration of the victims of the trafficking, because we know some years ago, as rightly mentioned, some 6 or 7 years ago, it was a problem. So now the problem for the government is how to reintegrate these ladies which have been victim of the trafficking, because sometimes for them sometimes it's hard to be accepted by their own family. Now the government is taking care, and this, I mean, a huge efforts done by the government, but also from the NGOs for these victims. So it will be nice to see and to see about the works of this, I mean, public organization, or what the government is doing. Maybe Vatra, someone else is doing some modest job, you know. I really appreciate what they are doing. But, I mean, the biggest number of the victims now are treated by the government with a professional training course, with the shelters, with everything. And it will be nice and fair to present this reality.
Mr. Hassani, how do you feel about this organisation, but also really taking an image that I think may be out of context, where they just filmed a family and then assumed that perhaps they might be trafficked to Britain? How do you feel about this type of expression?
Well, I don't know how the journalist obviously approached the issue and how he felt that this family, that they were probably happened to be a group of beggars. You see them, I think probably you see them down in my road here in London sometimes, you know, when you're going in the traffic lights and they wash your car, things like that. So it was a phenomenon which is coming from some other countries. But probably, I don't know, that's for a journalist to answer, to be honest, how he selected this family and portrayed them as a victims, potential victims of trafficking, or maybe victims of trafficking. But it feeds to a more general agenda. Is what's important is the TV, the media, the papers. You know, they have to be very careful on, you know, attacking a whole community as a source of a bad or a good or whatever it is. But in this program, if you have a picture of a particular family or whatever they were, trying to, you know, it's just something that journalists will have to answer, and the Sky News will have to answer for, because I cannot, you know, for a moment believe that there's only that particular scenario which would fit into the Albanian picture. So, you know, it has to be something more, and we know cases which are much more wider than that, and the more issues are so much more complex than the one portrayed on the video. So the source of trafficking is a very complex, very complicating, much more difficult from the one that's been presented on that video.
And do you think that Sky News should give us all a right of reply, the Albanian community a right of reply?
Sadly, the Albanian community needs to be, it is a new community, it's coming together, it's bringing a lot of benefit to this country, a lot of economists, a lot of accountants, a lot of lawyers, a lot of doctors, a lot of new intake of this nationalist workforce and intelligence is being is grown up and is being brought into, and talent, which should come all together and create a good community, a strong structure, a strong, if you like, reaction force for the good of a community and for community cohesion in London and the United Kingdom, and actually work together in bringing a proper and official complaint to the OfCom. Rather than having individual, persons doing a comment on or a piece in Facebook or on an article, there has to be a good reaction, a community reaction, which makes the OfCom talk to the Sky News and make Sky News realize. If that is the case, and obviously I have to stress that being a lawyer, I have to look at the evidence, but if that is the case, then Sky News ought to issue a proper apology if that has happened. But obviously, Albanians, we have to have a proper and legal channel of complaining rather than individual telephone calls to the embassy, because there's so much the embassy can do. And we, who are Albanian British living here, we have a right, as anyone else, if there is something which is being broadcast which strongly denigrates the image of the hard-working Albanians and hard-working community who contributes day by day, then we have a right to complain and take it officially to Sky News or be any other media organization. So I really would encourage the Albanians who have felt so passionately about the documentary to channel their complaints to the right body, who will then, in turn, force the Sky News to respond accordingly, even with an apology if that's the case.
Thank you. So, Justine, do you take away from today the message from the Albanian community that they understand but also want to assist and help? And are there ways that we can actually connect to you as well to actually help this problem?
Yes, definitely. We work with all communities across the UK, but also internationally. As we've said earlier, it's an international issue. And for me, listening to the other speakers and recognising that actually, wanting to demonstrate the values, for example, from within Albanian communities, that's absolutely right to do that. I think there is just a caution in terms of recognising that this is an issue. And so we need to make sure that we do provide the right level of service and care and support to those who are genuinely trafficked. And those who are not, who for one reason or another want to come to the UK, then we need to look at their cases individually and provide them with the help and support they need. But absolutely, we run shelters, we run a helpline, and I would encourage anybody to reach out, contact the helpline if they want help and support. And if it's not a situation of trafficking or slavery, we can actually get the individual to the right help and support that they need.
Thank you for that. Can I just do a general closing statements now from you all? Mr. Ambassador, first of all, how do you see Albania today in reality? And I know it's looking to go towards the EU, join the EU and so forth. So how would you describe modern Albania? Well,
Albania is in its natural path. Albania is part of Europe geographically. Albania for 28 years now is becoming more and more a modern democratic country. Albania from 10 years now is a NATO member. Albania is giving its contribution in the peace of stability in the region. I mean, in Bosnia with our forces, in Kosovo, even in Africa. Our Navy today is in Aegean Sea, controlling and patrolling the influx of immigrants. In the meantime, we hope that next June we will receive, we will open the negotiation for membership in NATO. And my government are working hard on this field. Albania is a country that this year have been visited from around 200,000 tourists. And it's much better to ask them, what is Albania? How they have felt when they were in Albania, about the hospitality, about the country, about the beauty of the countries, about the food, about the people they have met them. So in June there was a great event in south of Albania, called Kala, which means castle, in which more or less 3,000 young British citizens spent 5 days over there. It's much better to ask them what was Albania in their eyes. They were all young people visiting for the first time Albania. It's much better to ask them about their opinion about the country. So really I'm sorry. I'm sorry about this documentary, which from my point of view, as I mentioned from the beginning, is not realistic, it's not balanced, and it's not fair. That's why I join, and we will join together our forces with a lawyer like distinguished lawyer Mr. Hassani is here, that we will work together to present this case to the authority, because I'm really honored to present my country in this democratic, maybe one of the most democratic country in which the modern democracy was born. And I think this country, this democratic country, have all the mechanism to bring the reality, because I would like to stress, all the Albanian community is offended by this kind of wrong and negative messages given by this documentary.
Thank you. Marita, how, as a modern-day mother and woman and Albanian speaker as well, how do you see Albania?
I see Albania to hold on to the family values and build on that and make it better and better to create a brighter future. And all that difficulties that were faced, just don't feel embarrassed to look for help or to ask for help, but just work together with others, because together we can deal with any difficulty.
Thank you. And Mr. Hassani, your views on Albania today, you know, the professionals in Albania today like yourself, who are highly respected in Britain at the same time, how do you see Albania?
I think to look at the Albanian culture and tradition and their hospitality and the way in which they treat the guests with dignity and with besar. You only got to visit the country and you got to read, actually, Idir Durham, very famous early last century writer from England, and you got to understand where Albania has come from, where it was, and where it's going to. We visit the country, we left the country quite many years ago, but we visit the country quite often. And you see the wave of change into urbanization, into globalization, into inclusion, into civilization, into whatever you want to call it. But what's important is that Albanian women have made a substantive and huge contribution into the Albanian transition and actually an Albanian movement for integration and for progression. You only look at Albanian history, we've had Albanian queens. Yeah, you look at the history, you had Mother Teresa, very famous. You have Skanderbeg, who tries to defend Europe from the extinction of Christianity. And you have great leaders and who have contributed not only to Albania, but to the whole Europe. So we fell for 50 years into communism and dictatorship, but 28 years on, the country is beyond recognition. Political pace, well, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, that it is for many other countries. but I'm sure we'll very soon see Albania, a member of the European Union, a member of many other, and actually see Albania in the head of the countries fighting corruption, fighting trafficking, fighting many elements which they've been doing for many years. So I'm very, very hopeful for the country. And immigration and migration is a global issue. People move from one country to another. But also you have to visit in the summer Albania when you see at least 200,000, 250,000 the British people visited the United Kingdom, and maybe more than 1 million people visited the country during summer holiday. A wonderful country, and I both invite, especially you two, to visit the country and see the truth.
Well, thank you everyone for contributing to this program. As you know, we will be talking to other leading Albanians for this documentary at the same time. But as you can see, there's been a consensus of opinion today that we are asking for a right of reply from Sky News over this video that's been shown, that in reality Albanian communities are addressing the issues, and they also feel that the much maligned vision that's been given by the Sky News programme should be challenged at least. The next issue was the Minister of Interior, the Deputy Minister of Interior, appeared on the Sky News project and said that perhaps there was corruption from the lowest to the highest, and perhaps girls were afraid of appearing in front of the police in case something happened to them as well. Now, we speak ourselves to that same woman and we ask her the similar questions. She is stating categorically that that quote was taken out of context. And here is a much fuller version of what she wanted to say. Minister, thank you so much for your time today, first of all. I know Albania has a trafficking problem, but it's really a problem that many other countries are also tainted with at the same time. It's not just purely Albanians, but can you tell me, what is the Albanian government doing about this? How are you addressing this type of issue?
Thank you for the interview. I want to bring in mind that trafficking of human beings is a worldwide problem. Yes. And of course, Albania is affected also, as all other countries of Europe and wider from this phenomena. It is a phenomena that Albania, in fact, has been affected after 90s. So the first year of democracy, and where people had, the chance to move out the borders of Albania. In the first years of democracy, till 2000, 2003, I have to admit that this has really been problematic. But after 2003, 2004, the governments that were in that time were very committed, and it was a very strong political will, to tackle this phenomenon and this problem. And since 2007, for the first time, it was created the Office of the National Coordinator of Combating Trafficking of Human Beings. And this was a duty in which, in charge of this, it was the Deputy Minister of Interior of that time. It was a woman.
Very good.
Yes. And she covered, this kind of problematics. For the first time, Albania, after 2012, came out from the watch list of the from the watch list of the it's some kind of list, that it is made from American Department of State, where they yearly produce a report on trafficking of human beings, where they rank the countries of all the world. And Albania for years has been, as I said, in the watch list part. But from 2013, Albania is in Tier 2, which is a very high position. In Tier 1 are only, the most developed countries, which most of them are part of EU, and which of course have very, very good results, on tackling this problem. So Tier 2 for Albania, it's a success. Just bringing in mind, as I said, that only after 90s, Albania faced this kind of problematic. Nevertheless, we didn't stop only just creating this office, the Office of the National Coordinator of Trafficking of Human Beings, but we tried to get from other countries the best models, of structures, how to help, people who face this problem and how to minimize, the numbers and the figures. For the first time, it was a national strategy on 2014 till 2020, national strategy countering organized crime, terrorism, and trafficking in human beings, under which, of course, there is a specific action plan where are included concrete measures on, tackling this phenomena. I want to share with you the good news that now, with the end of 2017, we have drafted the new action plan, national action plan on combating trafficking of human beings for 2018-2020, in full compliance, of course, with the best practices and the best legal framework of the countries of Europe, and of course having in mind some very important pillars, which are, of course, preventing, punitive measures, reintegration of victims, and of course, when I talk about prevention, I want just to put the stress even in sharing information and awareness raising campaign and education, which I think is very important, because everything, I think, begins from education. And we have tried to put in the curriculums of the high school, so at the level of the teenagers of 14 to 18, in a specific curricula, some knowledges about what is trafficking in human beings, what are, the danger things, they have to be aware of it. So in the way that teenagers, could have some information, what is this? Because I think it's a matter of education, of course, it's a matter of sharing information, but of course I think it's a matter of mentality. So going abroad, illegal migration, I don't think these are not choices for the Albanian youth. We are a very vital people, I have to say it. We have very, very good young people that, of course, they like to study abroad, they like to work abroad. Well, it's, free of movement, it's the basis of everything, and all the Albanians have the right to move there. But we have tried, to focus or to orient, this kind of movement to regular migration, orderly and irregular migration. I think one of the structures, and I'm very proud to say that we have borrowed from the British model, it is the national referral mechanism, which has been in place since 2010. And it's, some kind of structure that is chaired by me, that is Deputy Minister of Interior, and part of it are the representatives, high representatives of all central institutions of the Albanian government. And it's a very, very important structure when we discuss, about strategic documents and political decisions regarding to this problematic. But it's not only this. We have created also some kind of authority that we called it responsibility authority, which is more technical level, where specialists, of the areas can talk together about the concrete measures and what they can do about concrete cases. So concrete cases, are referred to our national referral mechanism, and then it is the responsible authority, that deals with that. Another thing that is something new and very, very important, it is some kind of a new structure that we have built that we have called advisory board. It is a board that it will be consisted by ex-victims of trafficking, but that are fully reintegrated. It will be some kind of advisory board for me and for the national referral mechanism, because what I think we have to do is to look at this phenomena and to look at the solutions for this with the eyes of the victims of trafficking. We have identified some very, very good people that unfortunately, of course, years before have been trafficked, but now they are fully reintegrated. And soon, I think, in the next meeting of NRM, we will have in place the advisory board, which will help us, to produce maybe more strategic documents and do more good policies, better policies, but also I think to do in practice really what is most important, things that really could have a very good impact, on the lives of the victims of trafficking. Something very good that we have done about reintegration of victims of trafficking, which I think is very important, and Albania maybe it is one of the best examples of the region, is not only the national referral mechanism, which has been some kind of best model, for other countries, but also we have a national center of reception for victims of trafficking in Linza, near Tirana, which have been reconstructed last year with very good conditions, where victims there are treated very well, where it is given, of course, psychological assistance, health assistance, education assistance, and even, some kind, they are trained there to get a profession. So in the way that after some years, they can do a normal life, and so they can have some kind of profession, to face the life and really to find some kind of light, at the end of the tunnel. And I don't know if maybe I can have the chance to let you and to go there, but really the area, the building, it is reconstructed, it is in very good conditions, and victims are treated very well. The other thing that we are doing, very close collaboration with NGOs, with non-governmental organizations that deal, in the field of reintegration of victims of trafficking. We have some very powerful NGOs that assist victims of trafficking, but of course with the help of government. Why I'm saying with the help of government? Because, as I said, we have political will, and we are committed, not only to prevent, as I said, but also to reintegrate. Because every year in the state budget, when it is discussed, the state budget, a sum, it is dedicated for those NGOs from the state budget, to assist those NGOs to help victims of trafficking. So if you understand, it is the state that gives money to them to support victims of trafficking. 4 of them are part of NRM, 4 of these NGOs, some of them that are really very important in Albania in this field. And we have widened, the range of NGOs that participate in NRM. We have a British NGO that now is part. It's a new member of NRM, Mary Ward Loreto. Okay. Yeah. And I think we're doing good things. Why I think we're doing good things? I'm optimistic because the numbers from 2004, which of course has been, years of very high problematic, now of course has changed. Of course the problem exists, because as I said, it exists in all the world. It's not only Albania. So, it's a global phenomenon, and we cannot be, some kind of country not affected by this. But the figures that we have shows that the number of real victims of trafficking is going down. Still, of course, we have those who we call potential victims of trafficking, but till the end, of all the procedure, only few, but very few of them, are really victims of trafficking, and of course are treated according to all, the framework legislation that we have. The state police, I have to say, is doing a very good work lately. I have to say that Albania, years before, when I said it was this big problem of trafficking of human beings, it was in the first year of democracy, of course, and we know that a lot of problems, not only economic, but also corruption. As all, countries that have problems with economy, etc., and which not have a consolidated democracy. But Albania has been, as a country, has been we've been very ambitious. The government of Albania has been very ambitious, you know. You know that we are a country that we aim to be part of European Union, and we are trying to open the negotiations with EU. So our ambition, of course, is to go to Tier 1 as just for a referral, not remaining in Tier 2, but going, you know, at the level of the most developed countries. So, what we have done, maybe this is nothing to do, you know, directly, if I explain to you, with trafficking of human beings.
Sure.
But trafficking, we are talking for a criminal offense. And this is a criminal offense as all kind of trafficking. Of course, it's more ugly, it's more painful, because it has to do with human beings, with women, with girls, even with young men. We had inherited, in a way, some kind of corrupted system of, you know, justice. And prosecution, of course, had problems that I cannot exclude about police. So the government undertook a very painful reform, which is called justice reform, from 2014. Some kind of a very, very deep reform that goes on the root of the system, of justice system in Albania. Most of the, you know, politicians here, but even the people at the beginning, has been a little bit skeptical, you know, how things will go on. But now the reform is working. Good. So we have now judges and prosecutors that cannot pass the process of vetting. More than 35% of the judges and prosecutors that have gone under vetting process are not passing it. And this is good news, that it means that really the government had the political will and that really, you know, the system had a problem. But maybe you will ask me why you are talking me about justice system. Because I think justice system, it is linked, of course, with all, you know, kind of criminal activities, sure, which is, of course, and also, you know, trafficking of human beings. We had, before some years, very, very much cases reported from police to the prosecution office and the serious court crime. But what happened? Most of them, you know, could not go to an end. Or some of the perpetrators, you know, haven't got the right punitive measures. That's why now I'm optimistic, and that's why now I'm proud of the measures that my government has undertaken, because I think with very responsible and with very professional prosecutors and judges, we will have at last, you know, cases that really will be ended, will have a successful end, if I may say, and we'll have perpetrators that will get, you know, the right punitive measures. Sure. And this is a very good message and a very optimistic message for all those victims of trafficking that, you know, ask for justice. I think this would affect, maybe not in short term, but in long term, even the statistics and even, you know, the phenomena, this phenomena, because we are talking here about criminal groups that have, you know, trafficked, you know, women, girls, or even young men. But lately, as I said, we don't see trafficking of human beings as the biggest problem in Albania. This is not true. We have created last year, the Minister of Interior, some kind of special task force that we have called it the Task Force Power of Law, which have been dedicated only, you know, for fighting organized crime. And it has been created as a special structure of the General Directorate of the State Police, with very good, the best police officers and the best prosecutors, you know, that would deal with very, very, you know, problematic files. And from a first analysis that was done, you know, by the criminal activity of, you know, the most known, as I can say, organized crime groups in Albania, only 13% of them, 13, you know, dealt with trafficking of human beings. 58% of them with drug trafficking, 10 or 12%, you know, with laundering of money, and only 13% with trafficking of human beings. So the most problematic, of course, of this criminal activity, it remains, you know, drug trafficking and not trafficking in human beings. But what we have noticed, it was also some kind of link sometimes, you know, of the criminal activities, you know, of drug trafficking, human trafficking, but also, you know, laundering of money, etc. Only the best news I can say that we haven't found in Albania a link, you know, of criminal activity with terrorism. So drug trafficking with terrorism. And Albania from 2013, it's out of the list of the countries, you know, that really are a potential risk for terrorism. So this is really very good news for Albania from 2013. So this is not the big problem in Albania. But still, as I said, we have an eye on this. And as Deputy Minister that is in charge of this field, and as the national coordinator, of course, we are trying to do our best to produce better policies, but also to have a special focus on reintegration of victims and trying to work with new generation. Something what we have done, a link that we have found lately, not only here in Albania, but as I think, you know, worldwide, it is the link between illegal migration and trafficking in human beings. And what I've heard, for example, from UK, it is that maybe the latest figures I've heard, illegal migrants in UK have been 777. And those illegal migrants are treated as potential victims of trafficking. And I think we have to be clear on this. You know, treating those illegal migrants and as potential victims of trafficking, it doesn't mean that they will have the full status of victims of trafficking. Because what I've heard from the last, you know, meetings that I had in Home Office before 2 months, it is that the files that go at NRM, which, you know, proceeds with the files of those potential victims of trafficking, only few of them can, you know, receive the full status of victim, of being a victim of trafficking. So that does mean it's some kind of, you know, disproportion between what is said with loud voice, you know, we have a big number of potential victims of trafficking. Albania is one of the countries, but I think we have to see which is the number of real victims of trafficking.
Do you know why this is happening? You know, in reality, you know, why there's this disparity? Do you think that perhaps some people are using the excuse of trafficking to just come into Britain in the first place? What do you think?
Yes, well, I'm very glad to say that since I've been appointed as Deputy Minister of Interior, I have to tell the truth, I've had an excellent collaboration with the British Embassy here in Tirana, with the Ambassador and with the Deputy Ambassador of the British Embassy. And I had a very, very good meeting with my team and a team from the slavery unit from Home Office before some months. And before 2 months I visited London, and I had very good meetings in Home Office with the representatives from slavery unit and NCA also, and from the Department of Asylum, Border Police, but also I had a very good meeting with the Minister Atkins. So what I've tried and what we have tried together, it is intensifying our cooperation and reviewing, because from 2 years we have enforced a memorandum of cooperation about, you know, even, you know, cases of trafficking of human beings between UK and Albania. But unfortunately, you know, this memorandum has not been fully implemented. So my visit had to do with this. So how together we can fully implement all the articles of this memorandum, and how to intensify the exchange of cooperation between, you know, our authorities even for each case. So how can we do this for each day? So we are trying, to review the memorandum. We have made some little changes, and we have appointed contact persons here from Albania and from British authority that will be in contact with each other for every information that they want to exchange, excluding here criminal police information, which of course would be shared in very secure channels. Because we have Department of Criminal Police and State Police, and you have NCA. So I'm not talking only about criminal police information, which I'm sure, and I've heard that our two police have very good collaboration. But I'm talking even for social information. If I say status of the family, status of the person, where it comes from, things that really may help your NRM to identify and to investigate, thoroughly and in a very correct manner for you, but also for Albania, giving one person, of course, a status of being victim of trafficking. So I think we are in a good way. And we are trying next year to do some kind of evaluation of the implementation of this memorandum, to evaluate it and to assess it, and even to see where maybe there are other difficulties, where we can improve. So I'm optimistic because I think this picture of the moment, I think, will change.
At times you've been misrepresented, and in the media especially. And how do you feel about this? Because you are a mother of 3, you are a very passionate Albanian as well. It comes across in how you speak. How do you feel about being misrepresented at times, and what can you really what's your vision for Albania as well, if I may ask that, for the future?
Thank you for the question. Well, it is true that sometimes we are misinterpreted in the media. And of course, I feel angry. I feel very angry because, first of all, I'm a public official of my country. I'm Deputy Minister of Interior. And what I say in my interviews are true things. Are things that we do in practice. So I'm not telling fairy tales. Because as I said, I'm fully aware that I'm a public official. And all what I told you about justice reform, the action plan, advisory board, the National Center of Reception of Victims of Trafficking, the money that from the state budget goes to NGOs, the excellent collaboration with the British authorities, these are really things that happens in practice. And these are really true things. And this is the real face of Albania. This is the real face, I think, that every country must know about Albania. Of course, we're not the best country in Europe, and we're not the best country in the region.
I would argue that.
Thank you. But I think with a lot of strong commitment and with, positive steps that we are undertaking, we are trying, to give, a new face of Albania, a new image of Albania. And if you go around in my city, in the capital of Albania, in Tirana, you can see that it isn't, you cannot see difference, from other European cities. It's a wonderful city with, with parks, with very good, very good-looking people, dressed very well. Most of them can speak a foreign language. Yes. So it's so easy to walk in the streets of Tirana, and if you ask someone in English, everyone can give you an answer. Yes. But not only in English, most of them can speak Italian, French, German. And this is, I think, some kind of, that shows that here we have people that are, of course, people with a great desire to build their country and to do their best for their country. And I think the government is doing the same too.
Minister, it's been wonderful talking to you this afternoon. I'm glad we've given you the opportunity to actually really explain to people across the world what is the actual truth about what you're doing at the moment. And as I can say, I can see firsthand how you are dealing with all these issues in a very well-structured manner. And I can just say I love Albania myself. I've loved coming here for the first time. And thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
During the Sky News piece, they said that Albania is one of the poorest countries in Europe. I would take issue with that. I would say it's one of the most developing countries in Europe, and we talked to many people, economists, well-known economists in Albania, about what is the thriving economy that is happening in that country. Today we are talking politics and we're talking economy with the Dean of Faculty of the European University of Tirana. Professor, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Silami Jepa and I'm a Professor of Economics. I'm also Dean of Business School at the European University of Tirana.
Can I ask you, first of all, how do you see Albania and its economy today? And can I ask you also just to elaborate a little bit on what you see as the future of the economy in Albania?
Yeah, I think since the start of the transition, Albanian economy has been keeping very strong positive dynamics. Economic growth have been very impressive, particularly with the first decade of the transition, and this is even due to the process of liberalization and allowing more opportunities for the private sector participation in the economic growth and industrial restructuring. Of course, the dynamics have been slowing down, particularly with the second and the third decade of transition, since when country matures and grows, the growth rates become more moderate. But still, I think Albania continues to be a fast-growing economy, and particularly comparing to the economies in the region, I think we have been performing better, even when the times were very tough, particularly with the financial crisis of 2007. So while the countries in the region experienced some recessions, for 2 or 3 years, Albanian economy had lower growth rates, but still we had positive growth rates. The growth is picking up, particularly recently, so we expect for next year to have a 4% GDP growth rates in real terms, and hopefully we expect to reach to exceed the 5% by 2021. So I think the economy is picking up and getting out of these recession pressures that we experienced due to this crisis. This is accompanied also with the increase in the GDP per capita and improvement in living conditions of the population. Although we are still, a developing economy, with a lot of challenges in terms of poverty and unemployment and things like this. But this is a real challenge. But I think with economic growth, things can be very well improved.
So it's obviously good news for the economy, and obviously 4 to 5% growth. As you will probably know, in Britain we have 3.7% growth at the moment. So you're doing better than Britain.
Well, we used to say that when Germany was the fastest growing economy, during the crisis, we used to say we're the second to Germany, in terms of economic growth. But it's understandable for a small economy, and particularly for an economy which still operates under the potential. So we are still very close, very below the potential. So we are not a large economy like the UK or the German economy or big economies. Small economies can grow faster, and we need definitely Albania and the Balkan economies, in order to create new employment, they have to have growth rates above 6% of GDP. I think this is what empirical studies are revealing. And for the moment, we are still below, as the 6% target. So the economic growth is not yet creating, new jobs. It's not yet creating well-paid jobs, so that they can give some more impetus, to improving the well-being of the population.
But I see a lot of new infrastructure growth, roads, buildings and so forth. So there is optimism. What do you think, why is it so optimistic here now?
Yeah, Albania still started the transition being the closest economy, so you needed no infrastructure. Actually, we traded too few with other countries. The transportation was terrible, so we had actually to rebuild our country from the scratch. especially, large efforts were made in terms of improving the infrastructure. So if you see now, the country is modernizing the transportation network. So we are building, a lot of new roads, which can strengthen the ties with the countries in the region, and in order to create more opportunities for logistics and other trade and reducing the transaction costs and so on. I think this has been a driving factor in terms of the economic growth and feeding the economic growth, not only the infrastructure but also the construction sector in general, rebuilding the country. And recently we have also some new projects in terms of urbanization, so to try to improve the urban planning of the cities and improve the quality of life of the citizens.
You have been a politician as well as a dean here. What is your vision for the country now? Where do you hope is the future?
Well, I think the most important project for our country, being in the periphery of the Western Balkans, is definitely the membership on the EU. EU is a national aspiration, and I think it provides a very clear anchor for the future of the country, for the developments, but not only in terms of economics, but in terms of politics, in terms of democratic institutions, strong institutions, functional state, rule of law, and so on. So I think the European project is not only a dream, but I think it's the major and the most important project for the country. It's an aspiration that is broadly shared and strongly supported by all the population.
And finally, this is a very fine university. Just tell me a little bit about the university, please.
Yeah, our university is a private university. It's 10 years old now. I think we are, for the moment, we are the largest private university in the country. We are still young, but I think fast growing and very dynamic. We have been mostly focused on social sciences, in business, in law, political sciences, communications, and so on. Now we are trying to enlarge and to have some more engineering skills, believing that the country is going to modernize its industrial structure and industrial base, so providing some more qualifications and skills for engineering and other disciplines. As a private university, I think we are trying to make our best to provide value for money, so to provide, a quality education. Definitely the education sector in Albania has been facing, serious challenges in terms of developing new curricula and trying to match what the labor market requires. So trying to combine and reading the signals of labor market, translating this in a curricula that match the labor market requirements, it has been a real challenge. It's a challenge also in terms of the way of teaching and particularly in terms of investments in the education sector. So we are trying to make a difference, but we know we are pretty much aware that we have a lot of new challenges to do in the future. We have to build, professions. We have to build skills for professions. We don't yet know what will labor market require for tomorrow. So it's a lot of uncertainties in the system, but we are trying to do our best.
Professor, it's so wonderful to hear the most positive message from you. So I thank you for your time today.
A pleasure to have you here.
When I took on this assignment for ALB UK television, it was really to investigate, was there a serious problem as portrayed by Sky News, that serious Albanian trafficking was happening between Albania and London, with young women especially. During my trip, I ensured there were no restrictions at all. Any hotels, any people that I met, or even walking around the streets. I had to make sure for myself that everything I'm telling you now is the truth. So when I look back, and I look back at all the different things that I saw there, I can really feel justified to say there is no justification of many of the statements that were seen on the Sky News package. Can I thank all the people who participated in this as well? They gave of their time freely, and there were a lot of very important people who I talked to who gave me their opinions about modern Albania, which was wonderful. I would especially like to thank as well the NGO Unseen. There was a clip in that Sky News portrayal that said that every single day, unseen, got at least 30 incoming calls a day from the Albanian trafficking incidents. The lady from the NGO stated this was not the case. In reality, they came from all over the world, those 30 calls, and they were different types of trafficking issues anyway. So I would like to thank her as well for her time. So in reality, when I've looked at this as a problem, is there justification for the Sky News package in many elements of what they have said? Do women put down these days by men? No, not according to modern day female Albanians, especially in the country. Is there major issues? There are issues, but are they being looked after? Yes. According to the Deputy Interior Minister, yes, they are being looked after and they're being managed. They see it as a problem, but they see it as a problem that both the British government and the Albanian government are managing as well. Is Albania the poor economy that we're talking about? No. It's an economy that is starting to thrive. You go around the streets, and what are they driving? They're driving Mercedes, they're driving BMWs these days. So the reality is, when they talk about, is Albania a poor country, that these girls are just coming of their own volition to London or even being trafficked, this is not the case, in my opinion. So I hope you have enjoyed this documentary. It's a serious documentary to actually put the positive side of Albania. Yes, we agree there are trafficking issues, but yes, we know the reality is that they are being looked at and they are being looked after for the future as well. So I would like to thank everybody who is involved. I would hope that anybody who has any issues or any comments for this, please get on to ALB UK television. So can I thank everybody who participated once more. I feel that I can see now that Albania has a future, a positive future, and the Albanian community in Britain, much maligned by this Sky News programme, it is not the truth. The truth is that the Albanian community in Britain are a brilliant community to actually be part of, and they are creating so much opportunities for Britain today as well. So that is my opinion. So I thank everyone, and I hope you can contact us on ALB UK TV should you want to see